just narrowly focused. I mean, almost always they're trying to eat the entire elephant, and you just got to get in front of you. Like, don't work out what's going to happen next year. You have no idea what's going to happen next year. Just work out what's going to happen this week or today or in the next hour. Like, just focus down on what you can do and what you can control and what actions you can take right now that will help you, rather than mapping out all this whole future scenario. Because there's almost always this kind of oh my God, I'm going to do this, and then that's going to happen, and that's going to happen, and then I'm going to go bankrupt and lose my house, and then my partner's going to leave me, the kids are going to, and it's just whoa, wait.
Welcome to another episode of Tech Society. Today we're speaking with our good friend Marcus Holmes, who's all the way from Berlin, where he's currently working on a new startup called Ghetto. Marcus has a ton of experience in setting up tech communities and is sorely missed by his peers here in Perth. We ask Marcus, what are some of the lessons he's learned on his startup journey? Hey Marcus.
Good day.
Good day.
All right. Well, I think we'll just jump right in. You're credited with not just like a founder of startup news, but a founder of the startup scene in Perth.
Oh wow! Okay.
That's what I've read on BNIQ.
Right.
Must be accurate.
Must be, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about So in 10 years ago, in 2010, I was IT guy working for an IT company in Perth, in Subiaco. Over the course of that year, from 2010 to 2011, I was finishing off my MBA and working, and then my life just fell apart, basically. I had a clinical depression. I walked into the doctor's and I could burst into tears and just like, I hate my life and just nothing. And he was like, yeah, you're depressed. Here's some antidepressants, off you go. And that led me to take kind of 2 weeks. He signed me off work for 2 weeks just to say, look, have a break. And I went back into work and they made me redundant, which was awesome. It's the best thing. I'm so grateful to them. Because I was in no mental state of work. So yeah, about that time, the first Ignition program rolled around. So Curtin Growth started running this Ignition program. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it was awesome. It was really grab a whole bunch of small businesses, apply some kind of startup thinking to it, and they had a whole bunch of MBA undergrads who would come and help and be facilitators. And I got involved in that. I signed up for it. It was great for my MBA because it gave me like 30 course credits for a week's work. And since I was out of work at the time, I could just go along and spend the entire week there and get pretty much my entire course credit for kind of extra learning stuff done. So, and that's where I basically met everybody. And it just became kind of the thing that I poured my life into to help me with the depression. And I just started turning up to everything I possibly could, signing up for everything I possibly could. I became a co-founder of a whole bunch of tech startups, all of which failed because none of us really knew what the hell we were doing.
Nice.
And yeah, from now on, the rest is history. I got when Sam finished his stint of running the startup weekend, I volunteered for that. And then when startup news came around, I volunteered for that. And yeah, basically I put my hand up for everything. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess.
Did that cure your depression?
That and therapy. And so I went through antidepressants for about 2 years, which, yeah, horrible but needed. I did some CBT stuff, cognitive behavioral therapy, and then went into psychotherapy. And yeah, I am no longer depressed. And I still get dinner days like everybody else. There's still days I can't get out of bed, but it's not. Back in the middle of it, I really struggled. Like out of a 5-day week, I would struggle at least 3 days to actually get out of bed and do anything.
Yeah.
The running really helped as well. It was stupid. I had to force myself to run, but yeah, just that whole getting out of the house and doing any exercise.
How did you manage that? Because I haven't been able to. Okay, keep trying.
the doctor was really good because he basically said about the same time I contracted diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and he was going to lose some weight and get fit, or I'll cut your feet off and you go blind, which is kind of really good motivation.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And it was kind of everything aligned. It was that you need to start running. Like, it will cure your depression, it will cure your diabetes, it will do all of that. And forcing myself to go out the door was, it was a great exercise. It was one of those kind of productivity tip, number 5 thing, is I would tell myself, like, I don't have to go for a run. All I have to do is put my running gear on. And then once I got my running gear on, it's like, I don't have to go for a run. All I have to do is go out the door. And once I was out the door in my running gear, running became the natural thing to do. And so it was a real, like, that whole this is a huge insurmountable task of going for a 5K run. There's no way I'm going to be able to do that. That's horrible. Like, yes, if you consider the whole thing right from the start, yeah, it is. But if I can get myself to put my running gear on, then okay. Yeah. In fact, I had the other, because I still practice all of this. A couple of weeks ago, I wasn't feeling 100%. And I put my running gear on, I got outside and I ran about 100 meters, and then I couldn't really do it anymore. So I just stopped and started walking. And it's that permission to fail, to not have these goals, this absolute kind of hard standard things. Because that's the thing, actually. Like, if you can't go for a run unless you run 5Ks, then you're having to eat the whole elephant in one bite. Whereas if you can just do that, all I have to do is get out the door in my running gear, and then all I have to do is run the next 100 meters. Then, all of that becomes easy, and it becomes easy to eat the whole elephant. So,
I feel like that advice applies to beginning
so
of a
many
tech
things.
startup. Yeah,
exactly. Everything. Yes, you don't have. Yeah, you have to be okay with failure. You have to be okay with, like, this was far enough. This is not working now. I'm going to stop now. Yeah, there's so much of it. And all you have to do is get an MVP out of it. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be amazing. It doesn't have to convert 100% of visitors. It just has to prove that the thing you have in your head is actually possible.
people want it. Yeah.
So that's how you measure success of an MVP then, is if you have someone that uses it. So you get signups. How do you measure success of an MVP?
Oh, God. So an MVP is there to prove our hypothesis. So it depends what your hypothesis was. Often for my MVPs is, can I build this? Can I get this thing out of my head and onto the internet? And so because
concept in the end,
yeah, precisely, proof of concept in MVP is like, but basically MVP proves a hypothesis. So the hypothesis you might have is people will buy this, in which case, great, you produce an MVP. I was reading about lean game development, and they talk about MVGs, which is minimum viable game, which sounds great, but it's like, same time.
That's a tricky one with the games, because you can lose users very quickly. Gamers can be quite entitled.
Yeah, and they often don't come back because there's so many games. Many games. I think there's still minimum viable game. I just think you have to be very careful that you're enough. I mean, there's minimum viable anything, but
I don't know. It's the whole Minecraft thing, and Minecraft is the game is what Facebook is to tech startups.
It's funny though, because I think
you should never make any generalizations from it, but I'm going to anyway.
True. Yeah.
But Minecraft, you watch that happen, and I subscribed 6 months after it first release or something, or I bought my lifetime purchase of it. When half the stuff didn't work. I mean, it just didn't. It was buggy as hell, but the game hook was so powerful. This whole idea that you could just dig stuff up and then turn it into other stuff and craft stuff, and that was what kept people coming back, even though, like, the graphics were horrible. It was written in Java. It's just, all of that.
They proved the game loop, basically. The addictiveness, the social part of it. It was still there. The core of it. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's what I think an MVG. That's like, in my head. That's what an MVG is. Like, is this hook in this game powerful enough to get people using it, even though everything else is shit?
And coming back when there's updates. My recent example is Prison Architect. I don't know if you've played that, but
I have.
I've got that right from the early days. I think it was a Kickstarter.
Early access.
Early access. Maybe it was just early access, and I remember paying for it, going, should I be paying for this? It was fun, and I actually went back to it like a week or two ago, and now it says massive game, and I think they sold the rights to introversion.
Ooh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Them.
And I remember from reading that they wouldn't have been able to continue making it if it wasn't for the early access and the support they got from that. But it was enough. There was enough game there that I didn't feel robbed.
But that's bootstrapping. That's that's what every startup should aspire to do. Is you get enough money from the customers who are so hooked on the core concept of whatever it is you've built that you can carry on fleshing it out and turn it into this monster and sell it off. I mean, that's the dream. That's what we all hope for.
I think it's easier with a game, actually, if you've got the right game. I mean, it's just kind of a cop out. It's kind of like a weasel word, you know.
Okay. Let's start a different question.
Okay, well, let's go with one of the ones you provided to us, which was, what does paying it forward mean? I think, and the follow-up is, why is that so important? But what does pay it mean to you? Like from a story perspective, when did someone pay it forward to you, and when was the time that kind of stuck out that, you know?
Well, I guess it's like I was in this for a couple of years, I was in this really weird position in the startup scene. And I got all the new people coming into the startup scene. And so I would normally arrange, like it would usually be somebody who either had an idea or had half a product, or in some cases, like one guy had a whole game that was completely produced, everything else by a third party thing. He paid a fortune for it and had no idea how to market it. And that sort of thing became fairly typical. And so I'd end up going for coffees. I'd usually go for like 2 or 3 coffees a week with people who were coming into the startup scene. And of course, my kind of business model for all of this was that I was freelancing, doing MVPs and stuff for people, writing the tech for people. And so a lot of this was basically prospects fishing for me as well, like the good ideas and people with money, and I could actually do some work for them. But generally, it was not about that. It was much more about just, hey, welcome to the startup scene. Here's, I'm Marcus, and I can introduce you to people and connect you to people, and generally, kind of welcome to the scene. And this is how it works. And there was a real clear kind of definition between the people who paid it forward and the people who didn't. The people who paid it forward were much more interested in, how can I help other people? How can I get involved? How can I, what events should I turn up to contribute to the community to do? They were all kind of community minded. They wanted to be part of a thriving community. And the people who didn't pay it forward were all, how can you help me? Can you put me in touch with anybody else who can help me? Like, it's all about their idea and their thing. And they burnt through, like they would usually only last 3 months or so in the scene. They would attend 3 events, piss everybody off, and then they'd leave. Whereas the people who paid it forward would, start putting their hand up to volunteer for things. They would get to know people. They would generally be, much nicer to everybody involved and less focused around what they wanted. And you bump into them 2 years later, and they're still part of the scene, and their idea had either progressed or not progressed, depending on a whole bunch of other things. But it was that kind of, they actually become part of the community. So.
Yeah, well, it's very much like the law of I always trip on this word. Reciprocity. Yeah.
Yes.
I always trip on, and I actually think it's like a brain tick. My brain goes, no, you can't say that word. Reciprocity.
Reciprocity. Yes, it's a tough one. Yeah.
But it's so true. The people who give get more too, and not necessarily in a transactional way. Just
no, exactly. Yeah, that's been one of the weird learnings for me. It's like the more I put my hand up for stuff, and the more I volunteered for stuff, the more it got paid back in ways that I would never have expected. I mean, the whole adventure I've had for the last 2 years of travel is all a direct result from kind of volunteering all my time for startup years and the startup scene.
It's a bit counterintuitive, but it does make sense in a roundabout way. It's just, you help
people
and they help you eventually.
Exactly.
Eventually, yeah.
Well, it's not even that simple. This is where you start believing in karma, because it's not necessarily that's it. It's more like reputation and things. I mean, I've definitely got jobs based on the fact that I'm a gentleman technologist, and
I love that.
Startup scene,
Let's hear a definition of a gentleman technologist.
I love that moniker. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Well, it was. I think it was it was way back in the early days. We were talking about personal brands because there were a few people who had kind of had these personal brands and stuff. And so I just came up with the gentleman technologist as a kind of.
So what is a gentleman technologist? Let's run into that.
I've never really done a formal definition.
I imagine the classy, refined,
dapper
programmer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think gentleman more as in the a gentleman, the attitude sense more than the kind of dress sense.
I was definitely thinking of it more in the James Bond sense. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So holds the door open for ladies is one of the things I used to.
So in one of our other episodes, Marcus, you mentioned something about she codes. So what is your relation to that? And just tell us more about it, I suppose.
So it's all grew out of Rails Goes. So Darcy, who's really prominent in the Rails scene, asked if I would come and help organise the Rails Goes event, which is basically a one-day event to teach women how to code in Rails. So I said, yeah, sure, and contacted Space Cubes and said, can we hold it there? And I think right from the start, Kate was involved. And this became a kind of regular thing. Darcy left and moved to Melbourne, and we carried on going. And then we merged with the Django group and became, it was going to be Django Girls and Rails Girls, but that seemed weird. So we came up with Perth Web Girls, which was horrible name because it just sounded like a campsite.
It does.
It kind of does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Actually, Perth Web would be the same as well. I'd be like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there was a certain element of no, forget, we're going to reclaim this. That this is, and yeah, basically, I always from the start, it was a collaboration with Kate and Space Cubes and various people in either the Rails and Django scene. It was always my intention to step back from it as soon as we had kind of enough momentum and it could go, because it always seemed a bit creepy to me that there was this fat beardy guy saying, "Hello, ladies, you should come and do what I do for."
Right.
And so basically it got to the point. Kate took it over and she's done amazing things with it. And best of luck to her. And it's I'm flabbergasted and awestruck and humiliated by how well she's done with it. It's great.
She Codes has grown very large from what I've seen. Very quickly as well.
She Codes is a great name.
It's one of those, it's a bit like startup news. Like the instant I stopped getting involved, it's something went hugely successful and profitable. And so, like, I think it was the weekend after I kind of finally stepped away from She Codes that Kate managed to get corporate sponsorship. Suddenly it's going through the roof. It's like, there's a lesson for life in that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a great idea, I think. I guess you're not involved in the day-to-day operations of She Codes any longer.
No, I'm not. To be honest, I was never that involved in. I would trigger off the initial meetings, and we would have to have the discussion about who was going to do this. But it was much more like I deliberately kind of took a chairman role rather than the CEO. And Kate just, she did 90% of the work involved in all of it. And so I claim very little credit for the whole success of all of that. It's all to do with Kate and her achievement. I just happened to be around at the beginning, which is the art of finding, really. Getting a lot of credit for being around at the beginning.
That's, to be fair, that's the important step, is the beginning.
Yeah, it was like, it's more an iterative thing because but exactly. it seems to be there is a strong movement to teaching programming to non-programmers lately, not just women, but also people working like labor jobs, people in high schools, primary schools. So is this something that you've looked into much in terms of just like STEM education?
Actually, the one I really wanted to do was Indigenous. Was teaching Indigenous.
Interesting.
I keep looking at Indigenous art and going, Jesus, it's a system diagram. It's like, flowchart. Like, get these guys coding. They would also, you can work remotely as a coder. It's the perfect career to put Indigenous kids into. because you can sit out in your ancestral lands in the middle of nowhere. As long as you've got an MBA connection, then you can work anywhere in the world. So I always thought like I should lead the way in trying to do this, but trying to actually do that was really difficult. And I was kind of waiting for the right person to come along who could actually handle the indigenous side of it. I could handle the tech side, but I'd never met anybody who could handle the indigenous side of it.
I'm trying to say this without it being a leading question. Do you feel that STEM education, specifically from a software development, I actually don't want to say STEM because STEM is such a massive field. And I think engineering education is fine. I think, mathematics education is fine, but I have my doubts on actual software development as from a education perspective. And I guess a lot of that is because I come in contact with a lot of people who are university degree programmers who can't actually program. And I wonder,
what can we do to improve that in an earlier stage? I think high school, primary school.
Ton of things. Apprenticeships. So Germany has this awesome apprenticeship scheme for programs.
That's so good.
You can leave school at 14 to go and do an apprenticeship. And so, you imagine 14 years old, you're a computer geek, you absolutely love games and blah, blah, and you've been hacking away in Python for years, and you can just leave school and go and become a programmer. And you'll be an intern, you'll be an apprentice. Like there's a whole scheme that's there to support you, and your employment will be subsidised, and you get lessons on top of your work.
So you treat it like a trade, then, in a way.
Exactly, it is a trade. It's not like this is the famous computer science is to IT what telescopes are to astronomy. That the actual a computer science degree does not equip anyone to walk into an IT department and start maintaining servers, or walk into a programming team and start building servers. I mean, it's just a complete furphy. It's only ever worked because they got people who were really interested in coding who then went and did a computer science degree, and that then kind of gave them the piece of paper that then said they can program. In fact, they could always program. It's just without the piece of paper, no one believed them.
I've always imagined computer science to be like the physics to the engineering in a way, where it's a lot of theoretical. Yeah, so that's probably how the same kind of approach, computer science to developers. But that's why we have a lot of that's why the boot camp thing has become really big lately.
Yeah,
and that basically short circuits the whole algorithms theory straight into web development. And whether it's good or bad it's probably worth a podcast on its own. But there's
I got
people to jump into this.
Two friends of mine at the moment have gone through boot camps, and so it's going to be really. One of them was really expensive in New York, and the other one was a lot cheaper in Berlin. And it's going to be really interesting to see how they actually do in the job market and how they actually work. Once they come through this.
Because
I think it's those, like in the old days, getting into programming was really hard because you had to get experience in order to get the next job and get any qualification. Like there was you couldn't go through a boot camp and get in there. There were no boot camps. So you basically had to know how to program in order to be able to land your first job. Landing your first job was a matter of convincing someone that you knew how to program without any prior experience. And so everybody was self-taught. And there's this whole, I mean, I'm one of those, there's a kind of particular generation, it's like a 5-year, 10-year group of us who grew up with BBC Micros and Equanatoms and ZX Sinclairs.
So we know your startup origin story, but what's your origin story as a technologist, as a programmer?
I mean, kind of same. I suppose I was getting bullied horribly, and the computer room became this refuge. And I started learning how to program on a Commodore PET, 64K of memory.
Wow.
I then got my own. I mean, luckily my parents bought me my own computer, an Acorn which I still have, just 12K of memory with the expansion pack. And started learning.
Enough for anybody.
I got addicted to video games really early, really stupidly. But what the hell, every kid did. Didn't have enough 10p pieces to be able to play, so I had to start coding. So I started writing my own versions of games.
Yeah, cool.
And the rest is kind of, yeah. I would say the rest is history, but there's a weird. I actually flunked out of university because I discovered punk and women, and then basically spent 5 years going off doing a whole bunch of other stuff, and ended up. I actually got a job raspberry picking on the Isle of Man, and found myself on the Isle of Man with no work because the raspberry picking gig didn't work out. Surprise, surprise. But they had an entire insurance industry that needed programmers. They didn't have enough mates programmers, so I managed to get a job programming there. And yeah, within a few years, I was an IT consultant doing the Y2K thing. So yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's like it's not something you formally. It's not an industry that you formally entered. It's just something that you've always done.
Exactly, but that's when it was my turn to start recruiting other programmers, I was always looking for the kids who flunked university.
Actually, that sounds a lot like us. Yeah, we are totally.
Our first interviews, one of the things we always ask is, what's your origin story? Why did you start programming?
Yeah,
and that usually gives away enough about their motivations, about their skills, about the passion as well.
Yeah.
It's so I actually thought I would end up being a lawyer, and just at one point turned around and went, I already have a career.
yeah. That was I always knew I'd end up being a programmer because I could program. I went through I was told, don't bother doing the O level in computer science because you can already program. Do the A level. So I went and did the A level and scored really well, the highest A level I had. So I won the degree, but the degree, again, computer science, was just a complete mess. It just wasn't like they were teaching me electronics, which would have been really useful to learn, but not as a programmer. Like, there's no point in the program in which I need to whip out a soldering iron to fix it. And that's never going to happen. So the people who flunk out of university are the ones who have no patience for the kind of authoritarian process, the jumping through hoops that has to happen to get a degree. And I keep reading about it, like, hey, we've got startups, we've got 5 PhDs working for us. And I'm like, man, those are just the wrong people to have working in your stuff. They're experts at jumping through hoops, but the instant you stop putting a hoop in front of them, they have no idea what to do.
They're also very good at process and getting things absolutely correct, which is very useful as a programmer in certain areas, but not startups. You want to move quickly, as Facebook's original motto was, move quickly and break things. PhDs, I totally agree. You see it all the time. You're like,
this is the difference between real world and academics, right? Academia.
But that was, the MBA was going through the MBA and at the same time getting involved in the startup scene. There's 2 completely different worlds. The startup scene is basically, let's get out there and mess things up and see what happens. Like, let's, as quickly as we possibly can, get something in front of the customer and see if they like it or not. Whereas the MBA is, no, you need a 40-page business plan vetted by a lawyer and an accountant before you can even think about it. And probably your first action is going to be hire an office. And no, that's not it. And it was fascinating talking to MBA professors, especially entrepreneurial MBA professors, about lean, because I just, this was around the time that lean startup first came out, and it was fascinating to discuss. And they're just, no, this is all wrong. This will never work. This is The one that always stuck with me from all of this is the FedEx story. I don't know if you've ever heard the FedEx origin story.
No.
But the fascinating point and this gets cited as an MBA business case the entire time. But the founder of FedEx at one point was going to go broke. He had less than a month's payroll left. He could just about afford to do, he had a bit more than a month's payroll, but he could afford to do next month's payroll, and that would be it. And he took it to Las Vegas, gambled the entire lot, and won.
No way. Wow.
Red or black.
And he went back to he went back to FedEx, paid everybody, and the rest is history. FedEx became a successful thing. But I keep we only hear that because of survivor bias. Yeah. If he'd lost, we would never know. FedEx would not be a thing. And I wonder how many other businesses went, hey, okay, that's the thing you should be doing, and take the last month's payroll, and go and gamble in Las Vegas, and then come back and try and explain to their employees why they can't pay their mortgage that month. because they just, they tried that one time too many hard on the blackjack table.
I'd be
And this was
lying
being taught in an MBA as a business case. It was like, this is entrepreneurial pluck and spirit. And no.
Well, although one of the things they don't tell you when you first go into business is that 50-50 odds are pretty good.
Oh, God, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. And this is the failure thing. That every single startup, one of the first conversations, the really hard conversations I had to have with everybody coming into the startup scene is, okay, so you're probably going to fail. And I don't care how good your idea is. I don't care who you've got your team or anything else. Those are the things you tell yourself in order to make yourself feel good about this, but you're probably going to fail. And that's okay. Just do it quickly.
And make lots of friends. So that when you try again, you'll
of course,
you'll have more.
Because you will have a second idea. Yeah, precisely. Everybody arrives with one idea, and then that fails, and they have a second idea, and the second idea is better.
You may even rebirth the first idea with more information.
Yeah, a better approach. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it's this whole the kind of the survivor bias of the whole startup scene about. There are these tech gods, I want to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. Yes, okay. That's not going to happen. So,
and the billionaire dream, which is one that always comes up, like the Zuckerbergs and the Bill Gates and Steve Jobs of the world aren't statistical outliers. Yeah, outliers.
They're not even statistical. They're so far remote. I mean,
they're rounding errors.
And the most visible, right?
Yeah,
so exactly. Because the whole survivor bias.
The ones that failed aren't as visible, so you never know what the likelihood of success is, really. Yeah,
and this is one of the things that really I liked about the startup scene was that it promotes failure. Because you have to stay, because it's trying to defeat survivor bias. You're trying to, because all the people coming in are going I only ever hear success stories, so this has got to be a success. I've got to be. And then they fail, and then they're crippled by it, and it's horrible. Whereas if you go in with the attitude, okay, so I've got a 1 in 10 shot of this anyway, but I can't not do it. I'm never going to forgive myself if I don't give it a try. So going in with my eyes open, I'm fully aware this could fail. I'm going to give it a try anyway.
So if you have the right, I think one of the attitudes required from anyone going into startups is utmost faith in their ability to handle any situation that occurs, including failure.
Yes.
It's not that they may not even do 100% the right thing when those situations occur, but they have faith that when they get there, they'll handle it. And that's how you sleep well at night in startups.
I find this it was really weird joining the digital nomad community and the nomads and people wandering around. It's the same thing that there's kind of two types of people. The people who plan extensively and map out everything, and they try and think of everything that could possibly go wrong and try and have an answer for it. And then there's the complete chances who would just travel to a country with maybe a visa if they're lucky, and no idea of currency, and they're just trusting their ability to cope with whatever happens. And it's the second sort who are just way more comfortable and relaxed and able to because unexpected stuff will happen to you. It's absolutely guaranteed. You can't plan for everything. You can't map out every situation. And so this whole kind of the people who ended up being long-term members were the ones who weren't so stressed because they were just, I can cope with this, whatever happens.
It takes a special type of person, I think.
So where on the spectrum do you think you are?
Oh, I'm barely I love getting lost in strange cities. That's my favorite thing is just wandering around strange cities and just No, I mean the whole Phnom Penh Post thing. I was being told by people, don't do this. You're very likely to end up in a Cambodian jail. And I just, okay, it's worth the risk. I'll give it a go. And there was one point in which it was I basically had to sign a document. It was all written in Khmer, Cambodian language. I didn't understand a word of it. And my lawyers just were like, yeah, you can sign it if you want. And I found out the next day that if I hadn't signed it, they would have arrested me on the spot. And I'd be potty in a Cambodian jail. So, So yes, I'm fairly far to the end of like, okay, it'll be okay.
Your risk adversity is pretty good.
Yeah,
But that's,
your risk profile.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for people who are struggling with that? You must have seen people who were, in that situation and not quite sure how to deal with it.
Just narrowly focused. I mean, almost always they're trying to eat the entire elephant, and you just got to put it in front of you. Like, don't work out what's going to happen next year. You have no idea what's going to happen next year. Just work out what's going to happen this week or today or in the next hour. Like, just focus down on what you can do and what you can control and what actions you can take right now that will help you, rather than mapping out all this whole future scenario. Because it's almost always this kind of oh my God, I'm going to do this, and then that's going to happen, and that's going to happen, and then I'm going to go bankrupt and lose my house, and then my partner's going to leave me, the kids are going to, and it's just whoa, wait. Okay, so the SEO plan isn't going as expected.
Oh boy.
That sounded too specific to be made up.
No, I have. I've talked to people who are literally in that situation where they've mapped out in their heads how their entire life is going to be ruined if this thing doesn't happen. And it's just, just pull it back, just try and,
focus on the problems you can solve.
Exactly. Like what's out of your control is out of your control. There's no point worrying about it. And you are going to worry about it. That's human nature. But look, if you can at least realize that you've got no control over it, then okay, I'm just going to worry about it as a hobby. It's not,
Yeah, sure.
I think you often find the people who are like that are also people pleasers. So they're not saying no to a whole bunch of people that they probably should be saying no to.
Yeah. I've really struggled with that at the start. That was one of those real, like, I'd find, random people would invite me to coffee and I'd say yes and go, and halfway, 10 minutes, I'd be something, why am I here? Like, I've got, and they're asking me to do things I'm really uncomfortable with and having to, like, I can't really, yeah, sure, but I'll do it next week. Oh, New York, no. Like, yeah, sure. That never happened. And yeah, it took me a long while to learn when to say no. And the earlier you say no, the better. Yes. It's like forgetting someone's name. Like I've discovered that if you forget someone's name completely, if you ask them the first 30 seconds, no one cares. Fine.
Yeah.
If you leave it for 5 minutes, then
way too awkward.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. You're actually better off faking it and just saying the name that comes into your mind first. You look like a Jack. Yeah, and people will correct you and go, "Oh, sorry, you just look like someone else." It's
but there's no way.
It's like either to beg for forgiveness.
Exactly, but it's either get it right in the first 30 seconds. Well, like, I admit you go wrong in the first 30 seconds, or it's going to be socially awkward. Like, no matter how you deal with this, it's going to be socially awkward from that point in. So yeah.
And people know what you're doing when you hand them your phone and say, "Put your number in," and like, "Oh, you haven't started the contact."
The whole introducing somebody to somebody else. It's like, oh, you should meet so and so, and you're like, oh God, I've not only forgotten the name of the person I'm talking to, but also the name of the other person who's just walked out. Like, how do I get you two to introduce each other to each other? I'm good. That became really, as I because of the whole startup news thing, I became fairly well known inside the startup community, and so it was forever having people coming up to me who I'd never met before, going, "Hey Marcus, how's it going?" Or I had met like once 2 years ago. And, "Hey Marcus, how's it going?" It's just I got really good. Just, hi, I'm sorry, I completely forgot your name.
It just occurred to me, I don't think we finished the paying it forward bit.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was going to ask you, how do people pay it forward? Especially when people have imposter syndrome, so they think they can't give advice. They're just a lurker, even, or not far off a lurker. What's the quickest way to pay it forward and mean it? And so it's a really loaded question, I know.
It's actually just turn up to things and be positive and pretty much every interaction, ask what you can do for the other person rather than ask them what they can do for you. And that's the core attitude.
Yeah.
Like you'll get introduced to all sorts of people. And like if you're a graphic designer, then always be, rather than looking for a programmer for your project, work out if you can help them in their project. Or like if you've been working in the pet food industry for 20 years and somebody comes along with a pet food idea, then just, hey, well, look, I've been working in the industry for 20 years. I'm happy to grab a coffee anytime you want, and I can go through what I know about it, that sort of thing. And it was really the people who weren't paying it forward, the leeches, were really just not interested in helping anybody else. Didn't really talk about themselves. It was much more like, what do you do, and how can you help me?
Yeah. Probably not even willing to listen to people.
No, precisely.
What would your advice be to those that have made it? They now have a semi-successful business or company. They're time poor, but they want to give back to the community that you gave so much to them. How would you recommend they start doing that? Let's say they've got a bit of a budget now. How do you?
God, what could you? I mean, sponsoring a meetup is always good. The meetups are always started. There's always people who have got ideas for meetups and things, but need some kind of push. And it's often, as you're talking about imposter syndrome, it's often that. But who am I? And so if you're kind of remotely got any kind of profile in the community or any kind of success, then just alleviating other people's imposter syndrome, like, hey, it's a really good idea, you should totally do that, can really help. Like you suddenly find that they were like, oh, but as you say, I'm a nobody, I'm just a random person in the community. And it's having somebody walk out there going, what you did there was awesome, and you should do more of that, is great for alleviating that and helping them get on with it and do it. I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's generosity, but you don't want to end up being like an open wallet. Money helps, but only in some places. I don't know. That's a very difficult one. Ask me when I'm rich and famous.
It's one of the things we struggle with, to be honest, because we want to give back. I like giving back to the programming community and the startup community, and finding effective ways to do that is difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah.
And especially now, COVID-19, all the meetups are off, and and I guess it's going to have a big impact on the community. It may have a positive impact. I'm not sure how.
I think we have an interest in giving back to the local community as well.
Oh, we're very focused on Western Australia in particular, just because I think we suffer from a lack of focus. And I think a lot of when you're talking about startups that get successful, a lot of them do a Canva and they're off to Sydney, which I don't blame them for. Totally understand why you would make that move commercially. It makes a lot of sense.
But how can we prevent it in the future? How can we make it more interesting in Perth for people growing up, startups growing up?
I guess why do companies like Canva leave Perth? They always say it's lack of technical skills. I have never agreed with that. I think there's a lot of talented people here.
It's money. Like Sydney is a huge money thing. It's doing the startup weekend in Sydney was just eye-opening.
Yeah.
Like they had I think it was a senior manager, like almost C-level executive with Westpac, come along to the startup weekend to talk about startup, and I was like, hey, you should maybe go to Perth. And he was kind of, why would I be interested?
Why would I do that? Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
You basically said, why don't you come to Delaware?
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Like Perth is going to have to do this for itself. And it was always the problem that everyone expected either the government or BHP or somebody to step in and
it's always someone else's fault. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And it's like, no, the community has to do this by itself, and it's going to have to be, it's going to have to be us. I include myself in that, even though I'm 19. I was actually
going to say you've traveled a lot. and you've seen how really progressive places for like startups and tech, Germany in particular. I keep reading great things about what they're doing in Germany.
Yeah.
What's the first steps that the community in Perth should take? That's a really difficult question. I know, and I haven't prepared.
I don't know,
because
I got kind of burnt out with this of trying to push and make things happen. And I mean, the whole.
What was your bugbear? The one, like the thing you really tried to get happening.
When the ideas boom happened, like the thing I really wanted to try and get was like Hex for startups, and they had this consultative process when they got 200 of the movers and shakers into a room, and they had this whole process, and the speakers were talking about, hey, we should all come to Jakarta, or and it was just this total mess, and it was that realization that the government are never going to do anything because they don't understand it, and I'm never going to understand it. And I started having one-on-one coffees with people in the government to try and push this and try and work out how we could get involved. And they just weren't interested. And I'm like, unless it was something quick and easy that a minister could sign off on and stand up in front of a press corps looking awesome, doing it, they weren't interested. And they weren't interested in, nobody in the entire process was actually interested in what was best for Perth, in what would create like a diverse economy for Perth. They were all interested in how this initiative could be used to serve their political careers or their civil service careers and make them money. And the maggots that came crawling out of the woodwork, as soon as there was a whiff of government funding around the startup scene, suddenly you had all these innovation advisors, innovation consultants.
We call them vultures, the startup vultures, and I obviously won't name them, but I'm sure I have a list of people who you would know and you would go, whoa. Yeah.
Charlie Gunningham and I actually compared our lists, and it was there were very similar.
I think if you've spent any time in anywhere near that, at least 5 people who are constantly constantly contracting for the Department of Innovation, and they don't fucking know anything.
Yes, that's it. They don't know anybody. They've never studied. They're not connected to the community at all. All they know is the right people to talk to in government. And so it was just. But
they're not offering that service to startups, which would actually maybe be useful. It's definitely one of my bugbears. Really grinds my gears.
Exactly, and so that was more than anything. That was the thing that really kind of burnt me out. Was this realization that Perth didn't actually want to have it. So that Perth didn't actually want a vibrant startup scene. What Perth wanted was
I think the people that want to do it are there. They just need to. They need to come together. It's just kind of where meetups are really good, I think. Just building the community spirit, having like-minded people, trying to get together and have a unified purpose.
I think there are some good industry bodies and some good organizations like Startup News. And I think in a lot of them, we're starting to see a changing of the guard where all the old dinosaurs from the IT industry are, they're starting to step aside. And guys in their 30s and 40s are starting to, step into leadership roles, and I think you'll see a lot more of a shift over the next 5 to 10 years.
That will be really interesting. Yeah. I mean, I would say age has nothing to do with it, being in my 50s myself, but it
I think it's attitude, really.
Oh yeah, I mean, but in general, See, you didn't actually have to say that you're in your 50s because I would have assumed you were 38, 39.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Flattery will get you nowhere. Yeah. No, but it's the same in the travel scene. I've got used to being the oldest guy in the room. Like the digital nomad scene was all people in their 30s and maybe up to 40ish. And I think there is a huge attitudinal change in that generation. Millennials are much more interested in community, much more interested in contributing, much more interested in building things. And I hate to say it, but Gen X we really haven't done the sharing yet. and I don't think we'll ever get out of underneath the boomers enough to do this. So, it's going to be interesting once the millennials actually take charge. I think looking forward to that. It's going to be fun.
And I definitely want the next Canva to stay in Perth. I want them to feel they have the infrastructure around them, either from a finance perspective or commercial perspective or tech perspective. And that requires a big shift.
But you've possibly got it. I mean, there's things like Appbot and stuff that are in Perth that are huge. They're enormous, but they're it's a kind of different attitude because of bootstrapping. They don't like Canva needed publicity so that it could attract more investment and it could attract the best tech people. So it made a lot of money. Like it's a standard playbook on that. Like you only hear about the startups that need a lot of attention and publicity and stuff. So Health Engine, for example.
Yeah.
Lots of money, lots of noise, lots of, everyone knew about Health Engine.
Critical mass.
Exactly, because they needed that kind of, they needed to see the beast. Bootstrap startups don't need that. It's a complete waste of everybody's time to try and seek that kind of media attention, so you don't hear it. So having the next Canva,
even
exactly, because you end up for the wrong reasons. You end up on people's radars. I don't think you could actually do Canva here being Perth, because it doesn't have to do Canva. You need all of that publicity. You need all of that, and that's just not going to happen. Moodle is always my favorite example of this. So Moodle is the number 2 in the world for educational software. It's everywhere. It's huge, and it's a Perth startup, and you've never heard of it. Moodle never turns up to any of the meetups, never does any of the things. It's never, and it was successful before the startup scene even started. I mean, it's been since I think it's the early 2000s or something. It actually got going, and so
2001. So
almost 20 years.
They've been around. So they predated the whole startup community, and they never joined it. But they've never sought any kind of publicity here. There's nothing sponsored.
That's the power of being global, I suppose. But the only problem is that they need to find local talent because the headquarters are here in Perth. Yeah, the headquarters
are here in Perth, and they write their code here. There's enough technical talent here. They've never had that problem. It's they don't need the investment. They don't care. They don't actually creating that kind of publicity in Perth is a complete waste of time for them, and it's a total distraction. And so, they don't, and it's kind of the same with Appbot. Unless you know about Appbot, then you'd never know about Appbot. And it's this global success story, and it's all of that. And I hear occasional rumors from the edge of hacking news about it, but that's about it, and that's fine because I'm not in its target market. I'm guaranteed the instant that my startup gets to the point where I'm going to need Appbot services, I will start hitting them in my feed because Claire's that good. So
cool.
Do you want to shill for your startup now?
No.
One of those less.
We're not actually launching in Australia, so I would. It's the encryption, it's based on encryption, and the whole laws. I'm an Australian citizen, and if I launch in Australia, suddenly I become vulnerable to the Australian government saying, "Hey, you should put some
commandeering laws were a huge deal. I think it was last year.
Yeah,
exactly.
And everyone kind of forgot about it. Yeah.
But so if we don't launch in Australia, we're not vulnerable to that, and and it's too small a market. Blah, blah. There may be a point at some point in the future. In which case, I'll come back and do another podcast. We can talk
about it.
You could always spin off a cross brand, and that's for the Australian market.
Yeah, I could do. We've talked about licensing and franchising things.
Yeah.
Well,
I think podcasts are now a better source of news than the news.
Especially
blogging, definitely. Yeah, especially. I don't know. So podcasts are really that. It's that commute to work, that morning commute to work is where a podcast. That's your target market for a podcast. And that used to be radio stations. So it's not really newspapers you're taking over from. It's more podcasts. Podcasts are to radio stations what blogs were to newspapers or are to newspapers. You see what I mean? That you're eating the radio station advertising, not the newspaper advertising. The newspaper advertising it's dead. I mean, trying to make the numbers add up to run a newspaper to do proper journalism, even in Cambodia, it was an absolute nightmare. Trying to pay Western journalists enough, and even we were paying them sort of bugger all because the cost of living was so low in Cambodia. We're trying to do that based on advertising. It's just it was horrible. The only way that could work is by going through a subscription model, but trying to get people to pay for news
I literally just subscribed to the New York Times. It felt like a really adult thing to do. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
No, it really does. It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're caught in that trap at the moment. In New York, like I don't want to pay for the New York Times, for example, because I don't trust that its journalism is going to be good enough to make it worth paying for. Because all I read in the New York Times is ad-supported crap that, frankly, I don't need. And so it's this kind of weird, it's almost like the newspapers have to jump from, right, we're not ad-supporting, we're not doing anything, we're not putting ads on this, we're going to do proper journalism and we're going to fund it ourselves. And then eventually somebody's going to realize this is worth paying for and pay us for it. I don't know. That's the only way I can see that working. But yeah, how long they're going to have to last paying for it themselves before people will finally go, okay, I will pay for journalism. Yeah. But I think we're going to find this a lot with a lot of things that what has previously been free or basically previously been funded by VCs is now going to have to be funded by customers. And you see that.
A term you hear often in the startup world is investable, and journalism is no longer investable. Yeah, I wouldn't put any of my money in any media organizations.
No,
it's not a safe bet, and when there's a million bets to be made, things
exactly
like media suffer.
Yeah.
And Facebook is an abomination.
Ooh, big words, fighting words.
Yeah. And you know what? As a business, from a business perspective, I don't even think it's a particularly fruitful place to advertise.
See, this is one of I would pay for Facebook if it would stop messing about with my feed and just give what my friends had posted in the order that we posted it.
Oh, wouldn't it be nice? Yeah.
And no ads. Yeah, so I would happily pay $10 a month to stay connected to all my friends all over the world and see what they've done. No problem.
Well, actually, they were great days, weren't they? When you go on Facebook and you'd see, my friends are at this restaurant or they're out at this bar, and you're like, well, I'm going to go join them. Yeah, and Facebook was great for that. You can't do that anymore.
No, precisely. And that's the whole, they somehow lost the whole thing there because they're continually trying to get you to engage more and they're feeding more ads and stuff. But Facebook is one of those classic, this would work so much better if people paid for it. But Zuckerberg is committed to it being free forever. And it's that startup growth thing that happened in the last decade where, and I've had this, I always remember at the startup weekend in Sydney, when I was trying to explain to somebody how they should go and get customer money this weekend. Like, it's perfectly possible to get customer money for an idea in a weekend that you only had on Friday, and they should do that as a method of validation. And they're like, I don't care about customers. I'm not interested in customers. What I want is an investor.
Oh,
and it's like, well, the best way of getting an investor is to get. And it's like, no. I'm just gonna put it. Like, the more people I can put in front of this, then I can go on to investors saying, we've got 1,000 people signing. And asking for money is just getting in the way of that. And it's that whole VC funded mindset. But I think, 5 years ago, I was saying we're coming to the end of this, but I think we really are coming to the end of it now. But
I think COVID-19
having an audience with no monetization method and an audience unwilling to pay for your product is no longer investment, you say. And that pretty much describes journalism, that this kind of advertising funded, like the advertising model every year earns less and less and less money. the more and more and more effort. And eventually, hopefully pretty soon, we just got to drop it and people have got to start paying for the news.
All right. Well, we won't take
Cool.
any more of your time. Thank you for being so accommodating. We'll end on a fun question. I think last time we ended with, what would you do for the startup community if you had $1 billion? Okay, so let me ask you, what was it? And it could be anything in your life that you are planning to win a massive award for. So the one thing in your life that you nailed it and people have recognized it, and now it's time to give your acceptance speech. Where are you and what's your acceptance speech?
Yeah, see, I don't really, I mean, that kind of recognition is nice, but I don't really care about it. It's the, for me, it's this triumphant return to Perth where, my startup I finally sold it off and done the golden handcuffs bit, and I've got, $50 million sitting in the bank, and I've hired an island to have a party, and all of that. And I finally come back to Perth, and I go, right, okay, I did it, guys. I've worked out how to do it. This is how you do it. And that speech is like that, turning up to Morning Startup or West Tech Fest or something like that, and giving that speech, that whole, right, okay, you can do it, but this is how you need to do it, kind of thing.
Now I'm part of the survivorship bias.
Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah. So, and I've always fascinated whether, like the speech I'm writing in my head now, having not been a success, would be the same as the one that I would give having been a success. Like, would that whole process change my viewpoint and change my attitude to like failure and productivity and all of these kind of things that we keep holding as sacred and so would I come out the other end with the sausage machine and going, right, it's all true.
Anyone can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You just got to try hard. Get up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Get up at 4 a.m. Work your ass off.
That's right.
Yeah.
No.
18-hour days. Don't see your family.
That's a bit more realistic. Yeah.
Kids at home, don't do that. Yeah, but it's that whole, how much because startup always sells you on, if you try enough times and you fail enough times and you deal with it, that eventually, yes, you will reach the point where you never have to worry about money again for the rest of your life. Along the way, you lose focus of money being the issue and money being the thing you actually want to do, and you start getting involved in the passion for actually doing the thing in the first place, like the thing that you were supposed to be doing for money, you end up doing just because you really enjoy doing it. And along the way, there's a whole bunch of changes, and it's that, but does that still hold? And it's, yeah. And I would love to come back and go, guys, right, okay, so this is what happened. Like,
this is how you do it.
This is how you do it. And yeah. Don't worry about that. That's all okay. And yes, if you, and I suppose the cool dream, like, yes, if you go through enough failures and you keep plugging away at it, eventually one of them won't fail and you win. And that's it. Yeah.
Well, I hope I'm invited to your fancy island party.
The island party, yeah, absolutely. everybody, everybody just come to the party, yeah. Because of the whole, yeah. There was actually one guy, I'm not going to tell you who it was, but it was awesome. He stood up at Ignition, the first Ignition I went to. And yeah, he had a medical prosthetics startup, I think it was. Finally sold it out. And yeah, he basically invited all his friends and family to an island to have a party.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
6 months after that, he'd started another startup because he was bored.
Of course.
So,
and the next startup with $2 million seed funding is going to do a lot better than the previous startup with $10K seed funding.
Yeah, one of the things I am learning is that actually having seed funding doesn't change it, and it can make something's harder. So yeah, that's something I'll cover in my acceptance.
Yeah, it definitely brings its own problems. But I think if you've done it, I actually think one of the big problems, we're getting sidetracked here, but I think one of the big problems with seed funding, especially for early stage startup and people who have not done it before, is you don't learn the correct mindset.
Yes.
Not having money definitely shapes how you do things. And then when you make money, the belief that you can make money is very important. If you start with a big amount of cash in the bank, you don't have to learn these things.
Yeah.
I think they're super important.
This is what we're wrestling with at the moment. Like, we've got some seed funding, and it's enough to keep going. And it's just, but it's that we're not hungry enough. Like, we're not customer focused enough. We haven't got any revenue because there's always money in the bank, so we don't have to worry about it. So it's always like, we'll put this feature on, and then we'll go and talk to customers. And it's like, and I'm getting to the point now, and I'm just screaming at co-managers, going, no, we need to have customers now, because there's no point having 15 features in 6 months' time when the money runs out.
That's 100% correct. And there's never an end to all the cool features you could have.
That's
But what will always surprises people is that once they get the users have even more cool features that you didn't think of. So you may as well get to the users first.
Exactly, and the stuff that you thought was so cool, they don't care about. They don't even know.
That's happened to us a few times.
Yeah.
You discover that
constantly.
there's no substitute for users using your product and telling
Exactly.
everyone. And and also just on the seed funding thing, not having enough funds in the bank really makes you motivated. Really motivates you to work faster, harder, and focus on what really matters, which is the MVP.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to what you said at the beginning.
So to sum up, what I think would be your advice to someone getting into a startup would be, in no particular order, be prepared to fail.
Yeah.
Be hungry.
Yeah.
Be lean because you're hungry.
Yeah. I think hungry is probably, so one of the criticisms of the Perth startup scene is that nobody's hungry enough. And I'm not sure that's actually true, but it's that, and hunger gets misused by VCs a lot. Like, having an investor having a driven, hungry CEO is awesome, but then VCs are not looking for a healthy result for the people who actually run the business. Like an investor's aims and goals are not aligned with the founder's aims and goals.
They won't rush to the raise. Yeah,
exactly. They're like, these people are not your friends, and they're not trying to do the best thing for you. They are going to try and make you do things that you are not going to want to do in order to be able to get the best result for them. My advice: so one, be prepared to fail. Two, do not raise money if you can possibly avoid it. Do not raise money. Raising money is the devil, and do that. Three, customers are your only source of value, validation, anything. You have to start talking to your customers from day one. And if you don't do that, then you basically haven't started until you start talking to customers. You will have to put up with being poor for a while. Being able to cope with poverty is one of the key skills. Like, if you, and that's not only to do with actual, like, physically paying bills, but also the status and everything else that comes with it. You're not going to have a new car for 5 years. You're not going to have a nice house for 5 years. Your kids are not going to go to a good school for 5 years. Like, all of that. It's going to take you 10 years from start to finish. There are very few people who manage to do this in under 10 years. The average is around 10 years. I'm going slightly over the average, but there's other people who've been doing this 20 years and still haven't got a successful thing. God, what else? The old one of hire slow and fire fast. Like, don't take somebody into your team unless you're absolutely sure about what they want, how they want it. This is really important. And that's probably it.
The advice I was given is hire slowly, fire quickly.
Hire slow, fire fast. Yeah.
It's very obvious once someone's bad for the culture, they've got to go quickly. Yeah.
And it's not necessarily because they're a bad person. You're not making value judgment about them. It's just that it doesn't.
It's all about aligning, having the same goals and the same objectives, and that's something that you can find out quickly.
Yeah. Even the same approach. Like, even if you value, like, detail orientation and people being detail oriented and focusing on the details, you're not going to get on with somebody who's this washing big picture stuff. Like, it's just, it'll be fine at first, and then slowly as you go on, you'll be wanting them to concentrate on the details and get the details right, and then just be like, fuck the details, let's go.
You need, like, different type of people in the team. Then it changes.
Exactly. Yeah, but that kind of wears away, and after 2 years, you'll be screaming at each other.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's the commonest form, commonest cause of failure is co-founder disagreements.
Yep.
Unless you can sit in the same room together for years at a time.
Well, that's why I think all co-founders need a trusted mentor who they share, who gets 1% or even just one share, so they can be the tiebreaker. And you need it doesn't have to be a written procedure, but an understanding that when a disagreement happens, the third party gets to override whoever they want.
Wow. Yes. And no, that gets really difficult. I mean, that's because you end up with three-way argument.
And
like,
founders just by the very nature of founding a business, let alone a startup, have an ego.
Yeah.
It's
and if you don't when you start, then you'll develop one by the time you finish.
That's right. So, yeah. And you only disagree once there's money in the bank anyway. So to get to that point, you'll have developed a bit of an ego. Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. That's fine. I'll let it slide. And there's no money, and then suddenly there's money involved, and it's like, no, this is really important.
Yeah. Usually the end is the end to that mindset is that money could be in my bank account. Yeah.
And I find that so weird, that seeing the change in people as soon as money gets involved. That this, previously freewheeling, easy, kind of laid-back person and attitude suddenly becomes absolutely dogmatic and principled. And no, this has to happen my way, and unwilling to concede anything. It's just, wow, who the hell are you? Yeah, it's really tough.
They start voting for tax cuts and reducing spending on social services.
That would make sense. That's how that happens.
I suddenly care about the capital gains tax.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Yeah. Thank you again, Marcus.
That's all right. Good chat, guys.
You've made it to the end of another episode of Tech Society. If Marcus has inspired you to get your MVP going, let us know by tweeting us at Tech Society. Don't forget to head over to the website techsociety.fm and subscribe to our newsletter. Tech Society, as always, is sponsored by Ninja Software.